This time we'll call to order the Board of Public Works meeting. This is June 9th, 2025. Betty, roll please.
Mayor Boyd.
I'm here.
Alderperson Carpenter.
Here.
Alderperson Hanson.
Here.
Alderperson Ledvina.
Here.
Alderperson Esterkan.
Here. Gang's all here. Next up, public comment on matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to the matter under jurisdiction of the Board of Public Works. There's nobody here in person, sorry, Eric, that could say a public comment. Anyone virtually? I can't see anyone out there. So, that said, normally I'd go 1, 2, 3. There's nobody there. So I'm just going to move on, unless someone here has something, which I don't think you do. Let's go to the items. Item 1, approval of the May 12th, 2025 Board of Public Works meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Alderperson Carpenter, seconded by Alderperson Hanson. Any comments? We have none. All those in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Consideration and possible action for consultant services for conventional water rate application. This is going to Scott.
So what we have before you, our consultant that did our last rate case has another proposal. As we discussed in the past, the city needs to apply for another rate case with the Wisconsin Public Service for consideration for adjustment for rates. And the biggest reason for this is now with the debt service requirements that we've had, paying off the general fund and actually the intent to borrow for capital projects, we actually are going to use that information now to apply for another full rate case. So what you have before you is the consultant that did it before. It's the same amount of money, $8,900. Staff is basically requesting that we approve hiring Onward Accounting and Consulting LLC an amount of $8,900.
Thank you. I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Ledvina. The Joint Finance Committee today approved a big chunk of money for municipal utility projects. Would that help with this?
No, it would not, because what it does is they're looking at funding additional monies for the safe drinking water loan.
Okay.
So what it is recently in the past, the states provided the funding for the loans. In the last couple of years, they tapped everything out. So the part of that budget process, they're getting additional monies to fund that loan program.
Okay,
So that's
just
what's in the
wondering,
budget.
yeah, I did.
Yep.
It's hard to keep up sometimes. Alderperson Hanson?
Yeah, I think it's going to go more to like communities affected by PFAS and other
And lead
contaminated
services.
water. Yeah,
So that's kind of what that is. But- So it's not a bad thing at all.
No, it's-
I just
it's
didn't know if
needed,
there was something there to help the utilities that are facing these huge projects coming forward that affect us. So we have to lobby for that then, don't we? Guess one at a time. Other comments or questions? Alderperson Hanson.
Just wondering, Scott, looks like we didn't go out or solicit any other bids, so I'm just wondering if you can comment on that.
We did not, because the firm that we had before we did our last one actually has all our information, and then the finance departments work with this, so we felt comfortable utilizing the same firm as we had just previously.
Okay.
Very good. Other questions or comments? All right, we have no more. That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, consideration and possible action regarding definitely to Pere's request to waive public works fees. Scott?
Yes, I'll cover this for definitely to Pere. You got before in your packet the request from definitely to Pere, basically looking for the board and council to waive all DPW fees. What we do now for every special event that they have, the traffic control, we set up, provide a garbage pickup. We actually haul, for example, the farmer's market will haul their trailer down and do a lot of setup. The definitely the Pere now gets 50%, just like any other entity, off. They're requesting additional funding for that to be waived. As she has in your packet, she's estimating it's equivalent to approximately $4,000. The discount that the nonprofits gets $2,000. So at that point, I'll just leave it up to the board to kind of determine what they want to do.
Thank you. And it should be noted as well that the city of De Pere will be rewarded with in-kind sponsorship recognition at the events. Other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
No, not yet.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Ledvina. Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if other nonprofits see this and say, well, why don't we get the same treatment? I know we have a very close partnership with Definitely to Peer, and we kind of do joint events with them. But my only concern would be if other nonprofits think that it's not equitable.
Well, and we do have a close relationship with Definitely to Peer. Obviously, the bid funds, the Business Improvement District funds Definitely to Peer. So it's a little unique that way. We have more of a relationship than we would have with anybody else. So I think with that, plus it's also in the, it was in the executive budget, eventually the manager's budget as well, where we help supplement Definitely to Peer. So it is the downtown arm of De Peer. So I think that would make it a lot different. If I would just throw that out, that's just
I would agree.
that's just my interpretation. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Nope.
Does that answer your question, Alderperson?
Yeah.
Hanson? It doesn't hurt to have that brought up, so people do understand that we do fund Definitely to Peer with the bid dollars, and then we also put it in the, what would be the manager's budget as well. Scott, do you have something else to add on that?
Nope.
Okay. Alderperson Essercon.
This may be like a weird question, or it might be juggling. But we fund them, and then we ask for money. Can we just null that out and not?
I'm sure we could. When we fund them, that helps pay the salaries,
Yeah.
for the bid staff, et cetera, et cetera. I really think, quite honestly, the benefit we get from Definitely to Peer far outweighs whatever we're going to pay for a cost of $2,000.
Sure.
So we could do that, but I think we're just splitting hairs here at the end of the day.
Right.
I mean, it's a good point. Other questions or comments? All right. That said, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I did it. Item 4, consideration and possible action on compliance maintenance annual report for wastewater collection system.
That's me.
Eric?
So we have attached our annual compliance, well, I should say our compliance maintenance annual report, our CMAR for the DNR. We're required to fill this out to review our sanitary sewer collection system based on financial and overall maintenance of the collection system. With the information attached, it does show that we have an A on the collection system, and we would have had an A on the financial management. However, under item 2.2 on the application, I forgot to click 0 to 2 years, so it didn't give us a grade for the financial. But when I finish that, it will be an A, and I will get that changed for forwarding on to the council. So we are requesting approval of this, and then send it to the council for resolution so that we can submit it to the DNR.
Thank you. How does this help us? Does this get us eligible for certain grants?
No, but if we fall and get a really poor grade, and we lose enough points or have enough points, because it's all point-based, you don't want to get points, we will have to do additional activities onto our system. So really, it's making sure, we have enough money set aside for replacement. We have capital improvements program to maintain our sewer system. And also then we document how much, what we've got for flows, what we've had for basement backups, just to monitor that we're maintaining our system properly. And from a backup standpoint, knock on wood, and what our street department does, we don't have issues, and that's a good thing.
Great. Compliments to the staff and obviously the Common Council as well for approving the projects going forward. I'm going to go to Alderperson Carpenter first, and then I'll go to Scott.
Would it be fair to say, though, on this helps us if we do have an issue and you're showing that you're doing your maintenance and everything when a lawsuit comes?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Good point, too.
that's why you want to have
The best score.
the best score you can, because if you get in a legal tangle with somebody.
Well, and that's true too. I mean, if something would happen, we can show we're maintaining our system, because there are things that can occur beyond our control.
Yeah.
But it does show that we're maintaining our system.
Very good. Thank you, Scott.
And I just want to add, I mean, what Eric and his team as well, as Tony Feaster and his team have done, being aggressive with the maintenance, being aggressive with replacement, doing creative things like slip lining, all that stuff, showing that we're doing diligence to keep up with our existing infrastructure. We're ahead of, a lot of other communities that don't do that. So it's kudos to the team. And then as well as the council for approving those budgets to allow us to do that work, so.
Totally agree. Well said. Other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
All right. I'll second to approve the report and resolution for submittal to the WDNR. Any additional comments? That said, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, consideration and possible action on award of contract 2517, Interstate Highway 41 Utility Relocation. Eric.
So this is the second part of the utility relocation we need to do for the 41 GV interchange over at French Road and Innovation Court. We had done some work earlier this year. This area had to be postponed because they are filling the overpass right now to get the settling out because there's some really bad soils underneath, so they're expecting up to 7 to 9 inches of settling. So that is ongoing, and once that settling has stabilized, we will come in and do this utility work. We're anticipating it in October, but it's really dependent on the DOT getting things filled and when they tell us the settling has stopped. So that's the project. 90% of it will be reimbursed through the state, and we did get reimbursed for the first phase that was completed last year. Between the two projects, we're still under the estimated amount that we had given the DOT, so we're in really good shape. So for this job, the allocated amount in the budget is $314, but really most of that's coming from the DOT funding at $282,600. The water utility, $7,600, and the sewer account, $23,800. The low is crew check construction at $298,888.88, and we are recommending award to crew check construction.
Very good. Thank you. Questions, comments? I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Ledvin. That's just kind of weird. So the allocated amount from the budget is $314, but we already took into consideration it's 90% from the
Yeah,
other
so if you
sources.
look
So-
at the budgeting in the, that's,
So it just kind of gets replaced then?
yes.
Okay.
Because they'll reimburse us. They reimburse us real quick with the.
So we bond for this, now we get reimbursed afterwards?
Yeah,
correct?
we bond for the non-reimbursed. We do not bond for the reimbursed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. That said, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, consideration and possible action on award of contract 2522, Commerce Drive Yard Waste Site. Eric.
So this is for the construction of our new yard waste site off of Commerce Drive. This project includes the majority of the work for some storm sewer insulation, grading the site, crushed ag base course, asphaltic pavement, fence construction, electrical wiring, lighting, and then overall restoration. Now, the low for that work is advanced construction at $481,687. This project does not include some additional work that will occur, such as we have camera installation for security that needs to occur, and that would be budgeted beyond, and we're estimating that to be around $35,000. Now, this project, when we put this together, the intent was this was going to be a joint compost site with Ledgeview, and Ledgeview is not going to do the compost site with us now. So we are going to have to bring back to the board some discussion on how we want to handle that. So in this project, we've just got standard gates that you open and you close, because we weren't concerned because most of the people using it were De Pere and Ledgeview. But now that Ledgeview is not going in with us, I think the plan is to bring back to the board some discussion on how we want to handle that. Do we want it, because there'll be concerns that everybody from Ledgeview will continue, or a lot of people will continue to use it. So do we want to look at some type of staffing in the future when the site is open and maybe have more restrictions on when the site is open? Do we want to look at potentially some type of gates like we have over at the MSC that are electrical and provide key cards to residents to use the site so only our residents can use it? Those are all things that would have to be discussed. Something like gates could cost up to an additional $120,000, but that is not included in this. So this is just the budget to build it with standard gates. So the overall allocated amount, this was included with also the bonding or the original budget for a compost site on the west side also off of American. And the plan is still to potentially bid that later this year, but really kind of key in for a construction more for next year. Between the two, it was allocated to be $1.5 million. So for this project, we are going to be assuming it gets awarded, reducing the bonding to $529,000. So that gives, some funds for this and some contingency just in case something else would change. But that does not include bonding for the security cameras, and then there would be an additional discussion that would come back on the gates. So that isn't included also. But with that being said, staff is recommending that we award the bid to Advanced Construction in the amount of $481,687.
All right, two questions. What would Ledgeview hypothetically have contributed toward this approximately? And then the second one, when is Ledgeview's facility going to be finished?
So based on our existing agreements, based on capita, so there roughly would have been 25 to 30% of the cost of what Eric has here. We were actually in the process of working through an agreement to discuss, this being built and how that would be funded, and kind of just revising the existing agreement we had. So during the process, when we had their agreement, they also were discussing doing their own sites, and that's when they came back to us and said they're going to build their own site. So the question about when they're going to be done, I asked that question because I know what Eric and Tony have gone through to get permitting done for our site. They hope to have it done this year as well, but they haven't really submitted any plans or anything to that effect. So I highly doubt it'll be done at the effect of the year. I did follow up last week. They're supposed to have it in writing because they have to give us a 6 months notice because they want to be done by the end of the year. So I mean, June, by the end of June, we got to have that actual letter, the notice of intent to terminate. So that's part of the reason we got to come back sooner rather than later to the board and council, because I want if the effective date's December 31st, we're shutting the gates because we'll be done construction, and we got to basically shut her tight probably through winter months till we determine how we provide access in the spring. We already know people outside of Ledgeview and the pier use it now, but it's going to get, be significantly more non-users allowed to use it, i.e. Ledgeview residents.
Yeah, I
So,
think we definitely should be vigilant
Yep.
about that. So when they get the 6-month window, they can still use it during the 6 months. I'm talking Ledgeview, correct?
Correct.
And it should be noted for everyone here and out there, it was kind of, it's not that the city was blindsided, but it definitely was a surprise. So there's nothing that really precipitated anything on our end to say, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. Am I fairly accurate with that? Yeah.
Correct.
Because the relationship was quite good.
Correct.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? Alderperson Carpenter.
Yeah, and this doesn't, because the west side you're talking in 2026?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, I know we're discussing this, but have you been doing discussions with the town of Lawrence and know where any of that's going?
Scott?
I've had initial discussions with their public works director, Kurt Minton. They got a copy of what we had for an agreement with Ledgeview because, they have interest. They haven't said anything in the last few months whether they want to pursue or not. We're still pursuing the design, but it'll be one of those things as we're getting closer. I'll be reaching out to them as far as if they want to entertain and do an intergovernmental agreement to participate in that.
And myself and the city manager talked with their administrator and their town chairman, and again, the same thing was expressed. There's definitely an interest there. I don't know what they have, because they're not part of this thing at all, are they? So I don't know where they go.
They dump right at their own building there.
At their own building?
They
Well,
got
we
their
had
big
the
brush
meeting
pile,
last
they have
week.
their grass, yes.
Gotcha.
They are right there, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And they feel probably the same way as we're gonna feel about Ledgeview, that our west side residents are using their site a lot. Right, as of right now.
So this would help then, obviously, yeah.
I'm just,
but it seems
it makes sense, I'm just gonna tell you, because
It seems there is some kind of interest though, so, yeah.
Sorry.
Alderperson Ledvin,
Just curious, do you know where Ledgeview is putting theirs?
What was the
Do
question?
you know where Ledgeview is putting their?
Right at their shop on top of Scray's Hill.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of ironic because of originally we were looking at sites, if you recall, we're trying to work with Alloway. That fell through, so we're looking at sites in Ledgeview. And I'd asked the question up, in that vicinity, and they were adamant they didn't want to do that because all the homes on Scray Hill, they don't want all that traffic to go up there. And lo and behold, now that's where they're going to put it now, so.
moving forward, if we do approve this, which I think we will, and you have the 6-month window, and then come spring next year, they won't be able to use it. I think one idea would be to sign it up saying that at this date, Ledgeview residents will no longer be able to use the facility, so they're aware of it and not blindsided come next year. It's just something to think about, because we're going to obviously we're going to discuss this about how to you know,
We'll put a sign up that we have license plates readers, even though we can't trace it back, but it'll scare them. Oh, I shouldn't have said that on in front of everybody.
Scratch that. Maybe,
it in the minutes.
Okay, thanks.
but there will be discussion about how we're gonna handle it, correct, later on. So we don't need to really get in the weeds on that
Not
one.
right now, not till I get.
But moving forward, I think we should keep that in our heads.
Correct.
Yeah. Other questions I will make a motion to approve the 2522, the contract 2522 to, is it Advanced Construction?
Yes.
Advanced Construction.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Esserkan. Any additional comments that we have? Scott?
It's just more of a gauge for the board here. You know, like Eric had indicated, because we have staff evaluating, like Eric talked about, automatic gates. You know, there's communities that have done it. The cost up front infrastructure, you're at 125 plus for the 2 gates. And then part of that, we probably have to provide access card readers. Some communities that Tony Fietzer's research right now, they charge them $5 a year, and they do it annually because they don't want those cards to, you know, all of a sudden they move and they still have the card, so it's an annual thing. Or, you know, if the board's not, you know, not too comfortable with that, do we start funding, go back to the way that site was operated in the past, where we had set hours during the week, it was staffed to basically check staff coming in. It'd be something similar that we have at the rubbish site now. Basically, we know who's a resident, who's not, and it deters those. The reason we went away from what we had, just in background for some of those, actually probably for all of you, is due to budget cuts way back in 2008. We actually had to look at coming up with ways to cut services at that time. And then I had several positions in public works that were, you know, were vacant due to retirees. One of the things we threw out, that's the time we decreased brush pickup, decreased rubbish pickup, and we got away with actually having an on-site attendant. So it does come at a cost. So, I mean, if you guys felt one way or another, I mean, we will bring it back to the board with costs, but, you know, just kind of, really, those are the 2 options.
Well, I'm not a card guy because those things can be passed around, and who knows?
Well-
To track that down sounds like a logistic nightmare, but I don't know. I'm more of the human kind of guy. Alderperson Carpenter.
That would be one of my questions, if, when you bring this all back, because you're gonna have to give a card to both sides of the river, even if you got a compost site on the west side. So now you're
Right.
talking every city resident, so I'd really like to know what the cost factor is gonna be
You will.
to do all that, and.
That
yes.
sounds good.
Yes, if, as long as we have all the good numbers,
Yeah.
when we gotta make our decision.
Perfect. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
And the question of whether Lawrence is going to go in or not on the west side also impacts kind of the issue of the cards, because you know, if Lawrence is not going in, then we might have more need for cards on the west side too, so that they don't use our site.
Yep. Agree.
You could maybe have one card for both sides. That could work for both.
I would think it'd be one for
It'd be
both.
both.
I think just you can use either one.
Both sides.
Yeah, how could,
If you like to drive a lot, you can go to on the
I mean,
side,
well,
west
yeah, I mean, it might be dependent, somebody right over here,
sides, whenever you want.
close to the bridge, might wanna use the east side one, so how are you gonna, you know, what I mean, and vice versa, I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I think people go to the closest one they have, I would imagine, right?
Yeah,
I would
but-
think. I don't know. I will. So that'll be a good discussion. So you have your input on you're asking for? Yeah. Give us numbers and we'll go from there. All right. We did have a motion and a second. Discussion is now over, it appears. That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7, discuss Brown County Highway Capital Improvement Plans. Scott.
It was requested that staff bring back to the Board of Public Works kind of update on Brown County's Highway 6-year capital improvement plans. In your packet, I have their actually current plan that's online. So Eric and I just recently met with Chris Harding, their highway commissioner, to discuss their current capital improvement plans. We're not going to talk about Saltbridge because we already kind of know that plan's in set, but really the streets that probably interest for many of you is, and I'll go through in detail what the county's told us. So the first street there is Grant Street, which is County Highway EE. Basically, the project limits that they were looking at, it was 9th Street to 6th Street. It was currently slated for construction on 26. And then staff actually also requested when we met with them to look at the repairs from 6th Street to 5th Street. And part of that reason was we wanted to make sure a grant was done prior to the DOT's project in 2028. So the county's gonna consider this request. Basically, they said if it wasn't done in 26, they would definitely have it in 27, depending on the county funding. And then
Question, Scott, sorry to interrupt. That 27, would that just be for that last block or would it be for the whole section?
that whole section.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And then the other part of the double E that people don't realize is also Fifth Street, which is basically from Grant to Main. I know we got to work on, between, for example, Main and Reed. When we do our section, we got tied in with the DOT project. We asked the commissioner to evaluate that because that is in need of repair as well. So he's going to look at that and kind of evaluate it and determine what work needs to be done, either prior or in conjunction with the DOT project. So I guess I'll go one at a time on the streets, and if you guys got questions on those.
Questions, anybody? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, I thank Scott for pushing for doing all of Grant Street up to Fifth. I don't think it makes sense to just stop a block short. And then I agree that Fifth Street from Main to Grant is in rough shape. And I know we're doing Fourth Street as it is, right, with the main Ave project, so it makes sense to do that in conjunction.
Correct.
It's going to look really nice. Do you have more of a question, or is that just kind of
Just a comment, yeah.
Okay. All right. Everyone else good with EE, Grant Street? Okay.
So the next county road is Webster Street. I'll talk about County X. Basically, the project limits they were looking at is George Street going north to Roseanne Boulevard in the village of Alloway. It was currently slated for construction in 26. Staff has had discussions with the county over the past couple of years to kind of consider reducing this section of roadway from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And a couple of reasons for this is we all have had complaints. We have difficulty in operations with the sidewalk in the area, especially when you get around, just south and north of Ridgeway Boulevard. The sidewalk's pretty much adjacent to the curb and gutter. Neighbors complain, residents complain all the time, want the city to do something. So by getting rid of 1 lane in each direction, you have 1 travel lane that allows you to actually not only widen the terrace, but also we're talking about incorporating bike lanes. And, if you look at the traffic volumes, the commissioner before, the current commissioner, they felt that, that section of the county road needs to be 4 lane, from basically, I believe it's, trying to think of the street, that's that 3-way stop going north to the prison. Hoffman,
Road?
thank you, Hoffman Road. From there north, because of that traffic, you gotta have 4 lanes, but from the south, that point going to the south and the pier does not, the volume doesn't warrant it. Typically, when you get volumes about 14,000 or more, that's when you really got to start pushing for a 4-lane facility. We're not even near that. So that's kind of the reason we've been working with the county to kind of evaluate that. So if we were to do that, we have to fully reconstruct that segment of road. I mean, new curb and gutter, because you got to pull the curb and gutter in, totally rebuild the pavement. Well, right now, the existing conditions of that concrete pavement don't warrant a full reconstruction. What the county really wanted to do in 26 was really look at just doing some pavement patches, kind of like we do some of our concrete roads, just do some patches and joint repair. The county basically would consider the full reconstruction of that section of street if we delayed it until at least 2032. Otherwise, we'd have to live with the repairs, and we're not going to get kind of the requests we're looking for and reducing it to accommodate a wider terrace and bike lane. The other big issue we have some major issues with our water main in that, with cast iron, and we get 1 or 2 breaks a year. With all the other work going around, that's got to be done over the next few years. The water utilities really can't afford to also do all that water main work. So by having that delayed, where we can actually delay that water main till 2030, 2031, it helps the water utility on that. So that's kind of where we're at with County X and Webster Street.
So how is Alloway with this from Hoffman to, do they want to shrink it up too? What's the impression we get?
Good question. We've been working with Alloway. In fact, with the former county commissioner was our staff and Alloway staff meeting with the county. So they were actually, what really started this, they had a big push. Alloway did north of Hoffman Road, because they got some major utility work has to be done. So that was kind of driving the county to look at that entire corridor. That's how we originally started getting discussion. That's how our section road got on the books. So when we were doing the discussion, their director of public works and their engineering staff and our team, we kind of talked about, because they have the same issues south of Hoffman Road. It's a narrow terrace. They get the same complaints. I mean, they can't put brush, rubbish, or anything out there. So they're on board with that. They support the idea as far as doing we call it a road diet and narrowing it in. So that's kind of where it's been left at.
Cool.
Thank you. Alderperson Carpenter.
So if you're gonna make a bike lane in that, is there any chance of getting some funding somewhere? Because we're trying to make
Pedestrian friendly.
pedestrian friendly and bike, you know what I mean? Like we did on Lawrence Drive and other
Yeah.
places.
There's always a potential to get some type of grant funding. We'll talk about the next county road, because that's why that street's delayed, because of grant funding that they obtain. So the county, we can ask the county that. It's a very good question. Is there any type of bike friending or any accommodation funding for that? I know the county, if there's additional fundings available that helps their budget and doing the road projects, they'll definitely pursue it. And, it may adjust the project schedule.
Wouldn't that be great? You just literally don't see bikes on that 4-lane stretch. You just don't.
You have to bike on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
pretty much.
if you see anybody, yeah. And I gotta admit, I do drive that road a lot, but I guess the traffic isn't all that crazy when you really think of it.
Right.
When you slice, I mean, a lot of Alloway's pretty much landlocked anyway, so the people are there. And then the same thing as you go south toward De Pere. Yeah, yeah, it's a good point.
Like anyone making that journey from De Pere into Green Bay is taking Broadway and Riverside.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Way quicker route.
And then they can now take the belt. They can take the belt line with the SBC and just avoid it altogether. I imagine. I mean, if you're someone like that. Alderperson Hanson, was your hand up?
Yeah.
Remember.
So Scott, if we do wait till 2032, they'll just make concrete spot repairs then for the next 7 years. What about like an asphalt overlay to kind of bridge the gap?
No, nothing will occur. We want to get our request to narrow it. The pavement conditions you see now, which is not in that bad a shape.
I think it's pretty good. I
We
don't
got
even
worse
notice-
roads than that.
Like, it's like really
We'll
good.
stay the way it is.
Yeah. I think
Now,
it's worth
the
it.
Alloway streets are a different story, but I think that is quite good. That's just my observation. Again, drive it all the time. Alderperson Hanson, you-
And then the Alloway section would also wait to 32, I assume,
At this point,
up
yes.
to Hoffman. What
after-
about the area north of Hoffman?
Well, we do not know. I mean, after the highway commissioner left with us, he has to meet with their staff to kind of talk about, that section road as well.
Okay.
any other alderpersons have questions? Everyone all good with the Webster Street update?
That's a great update.
So we can pass that on to folks if they ask us. Thank you very much.
And then the final one is County G. Basically, it's Webster Street from George Street to Chicago Street, and then Chicago Street all the way to GV Monroe in Ledgeview. Basically, this was slated for next year, but due to grant funding that the county received, it's moved to 2029 because that's when the funding is available. So they're at this time, they told us it will happen in 29, so they utilize that grant funding. Again, that will actually help us because that whole section, that whole corridor, and within the city, the water main and utilities need to be replaced.
This is the one the governor came for, correct? At Aurora last year. We
Yes.
went,
Yeah.
right?
That's the one. We were there.
Can I tell them about that?
I was your chauffeur.
That's right. We went together. It was awesome.
Because of that, you got the funding.
Because of that, we got the funding. Yeah. Yay. Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll hand out awards later.
When it's done, right?
Questions on Webster Street and Chicago Street, County Highway G. Alderperson Hanson.
So Scott, I know the section of Webster from George to Chicago is 2 lanes. It is kind of wide though. Would they be able to narrow that, or would that be outside the scope since that would be like a full reconstruct?
That would be a full reconstruct, but we can definitely ask the question. It's kind of like Grant EE. It's the same pavement width. I mean, and their intention is spot repair curb and do an overlay.
Yeah, if I can add, that is the intent. The intent is not to reconstruct. The grant is to rehab the pavement.
Okay.
So the chances of them modifying the width are pretty minimal because that'll mess up their grant.
Yeah. Okay. And then Scott, what about the area or the section of Chicago Street west of Webster. Is that city?
City.
That's city
That'll be
jurisdiction.
part of our, street plans is street ratings justified.
When it's up, huh?
We'll redo it. That's several years old, yeah.
Alderperson Hanson, anything else?
Oh, one other thing. So I think,
Doing there a little bit?
yeah, that Chicago Street is technically a bike lane, but there's not like, I don't think like a painted lane. How does that impact the project?
It doesn't impact it. I mean, just because there's a bike lane doesn't mean it needs to be painted. So I'm a pretty avid biker. I have no concerns biking on Chicago or Webster south of George. Once you get north of George where it's 4 lanes, that wouldn't interest me at all. So we have not necessarily marked where even if it's on a bike route, where all our bike lanes are on collector streets, especially if there's no parking issues and things like that. So we have not been marking them.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? It's like the governor said many, many times, fix the damn roads. Isn't that his big, his tagline? So that's what we're gonna do in the future.
Yeah.
Any other, this is it, right, then, these 3? Are we all good with the updates? Okay, thank you. And then I'm gonna go to future agenda items. Does anyone have anything? No. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Hanson. All those in favor say aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.